Hello, and welcome to Time Between Times storytelling. It's a new year, it's a new start, and I have a new tale for you. I hope you all enjoyed your Christmas. I hope you all spent great times with loved ones. I hope you all had the gifts you wished for. And now we're back on our weekly schedule at the Time Between Times. I know things are still hard, so sit back. Let's forget about everything for the moment and just relax into stories. Blot out all that is dark. Take in all that is light and enjoy the tales. This one is the story of Einon and the Lady of the Greenwood. But before we start, let us sit back, let us relax, let us join each other at the time between times. The time when it is neither night nor day, but the sun has gone and the sky is grey. The time when the veil between our world and the fairy world grows wafer, wafer thin. So thin that for just a few moments we can reach into the fairy realm. And for just a few moments they can reach into our realm. Now is the time that people see ghosts. Now is the time that people see lights in the sky. Now is the time of fairy. Many years ago, not far from here, in the wild hills of Wales, there lived a huntsman called Einon. He was in the dark forest hunting with his bow one day. All around him the green trees were dark. A chill was in the air and the shadows were starting to lengthen as he made his winding way through the woods. Suddenly, in front of him he saw a stag, its great antlers reaching out. So he knelt down, took his bow, took aim, and was just about to fire. He closed one eye and looked down the forest at the stag. But as he blinked, it had changed to the most beautiful maiden he had ever seen in all his life. Dressed all in green, green flowers, green dress, and leaves in her hair. She beckoned to him to come over to her, and he lowered his bow and walked through the foliage until he came face to face with the Lady of the Greenwood. He fell instantly in love, for she was the finest maid he had ever seen, and he could tell that she loved him as well. And she bade to him, "Come with me, forget all that goes on, step with me into the greenwood. But know this, that when you do come with me, there is no turning back." So smitten was Einon, but back home he had a wife called Angharad. He said to the Lady of the Greenwood, "I will come with you, but first let me go and say goodbye to my wife." The Lady of the Greenwood agreed, but came with Einon as they made their way to the small hut at the bottom of the valley where he lived. Both of them walked to the door, but Einon saw, as they went through the door where his wife was there within the house, the Lady of the Greenwood turned to an old, bent-over hag. Angharad sat her down, gave her food and welcome. Einon then told his wife that he was leaving, that their marriage was at an end, that their relationship was at an end, that he was to go into the greenwood. But he took off his wedding ring and he cut it in half. He gave his wife Angharad half, and he kept half, and said, "Let this be a memory for both of us as we go through the rest of our lives." He kissed her one last time and walked out back into the forest with the Lady of the Greenwood. As soon as they left the house, she turned back into the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. But she turned to him and lifted her skirt just a small bit. And there, under her dress, she had hooves instead of feet. "I am not without flaws," she said, "but now you are with me." They walked into the deepest part of the forest, and there they lived their lives. Einon was happy, of course, but his thoughts often turned to Angharad. His thoughts often turned to where he had once lived. His thoughts often turned to his past and the love he had once known. But the Lady of the Greenwood would not let him go. He would not leave her sight. He would not leave where they lived. He would not leave the glades where they resided. And she always kept an eye on him. But one day, at the time between times, the time when it was neither night nor day, but the sun had gone, and the sky was grey, Einon sat with his back to a tree, and he took out the half a gold ring that he had kept. He wished that he could see it more often. He wished that he could hold it close. So he took it, placed it under his eyelid to keep safe. As he was doing this, out of the corner of his eye, he saw a figure on a great white horse, carrying a white staff. Einon stood up and greeted this man, someone he had never seen before. "What are you doing?" said the white rider. Einon told him exactly what he was doing. "I have placed this half a ring under my eyelid in memory of my wife, who I no longer see, who no longer would recognize, who no longer I go to her house. Hold this staff," said the white rider, "and think of your wife, and you will see her as she once was." Einon did that, grabbed hold of the staff and thought of Angharad. And there he was transported back and saw her as he once was, his wife. But what will happen to her? You can go to her as long as you take the staff, but tell nobody. Keep it a secret. And with that, the white rider had gone. Einon hid the staff, but just as he was preparing to go, his thoughts turned to the lady of the Greenwood with her cloven feet. And although he was desperate to leave, he felt that he must tell her where he was going. And so he did. She said nothing, but walked out of his sight and vanished. The next day, Einon took the staff and walked back to his house, back to where Angharad lived, back to the life he had left. It looked the same as it once did. And there, as he walked through the door, he saw Angharad sat by the fireplace with a man he had never seen before. A man with green hair, with green leaves in his hair, wearing green robes, who introduced himself as the man of the Greenwood, who would marry Angharad. When Angharad looked at Einon, he could tell that she did not see him as he was. He could tell that she saw him as a bent old man from the forest and had no recollection of him. The next morning, they were to be married, and as the green man got up from next to the fireplace, Einon saw, as he lifted his trousers, that he had cloven feet, and he knew at this time that this was the lady of the Greenwood in another guise. The following day was the day of the wedding, and Einon gathered with the rest of the village to see the great goings-on as this wedding would take place between Angharad and the man in green. The harpist who was due to play, did not turn up. Einon could play the harp, so started to play in his stead, but he could tell that everyone saw him again as this old man, withered and grey. But as the time between times came, the time when it was neither night nor day, but the sun had gone and the sky is grey, Einon saw the bride alone for just a few moments, and decided to approach her and speak to her. As he did so, he lifted under his eyelid, picked out the half a gold ring. He approached Angharad and said, "I know today you are to be wed. But do you have one similar to this?" Angharad reached into her pocket, pulled out the half a gold ring. "Yes, this once belonged to my husband. We had a life, we had happiness. But we thought that we deserved more. We thought that we should move on. We did not realize what we once had was good enough." Einon placed his ring next to Angharad's and joined them together. And there was a flash of light, and everything vanished. The house, the people, the harpist, the husband with the cloven hooves, the lady of the Greenwood, all were gone. And Angharad and Einon awoke in their cottage, sat next to the fireplace, which had long gone out, leaving it cold. But their hearts were full of warmth, because then they realized what they had lost and what was now returned to them. They lived happily ever after. And that, my friends, is the story of Einon and the Lady of the Greenwood. I hope you enjoyed it. Please take care. And please join me here next week at the time between times for more tales. And if you are enjoying these tales, please leave a like. Please consider subscribing. And please tell your friends about us. For our numbers continue to grow around the fireplace. And that can only be a good thing. No star.